What's the most outrageously expensive thing you've seen in person? My high school orchestra teacher, who is also concert master for the Arkansas Symphony, was loaned a $12 million Stradivarius anonymously for an upcoming performance. I wasn't allowed to touch it, but I got a solid look at it, as well as heard it from 3 feet away. The CEO of my husband's company years back held a Christmas party at this house. At the time, the company was a startup and there was maybe 20 employees. He had original Picasso artwork on his walls. I have no idea how much they were actually worth, but I thought that was pretty cool. The Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime in steel at an only watch showing in London. All the big watch companies do a one-off for the charity auction, and Patek usually only do watches in precious metals. A grand complication in steel is truly a one-off. It sold for 31 million Swiss francs. Close to 35 million United States dollars. I actually held it in my gloved hand. My sister used to work on super yachts. I'd go visit her every now and again and stay on the boat during off-season, in crew quarters. This was about €500 million worth of boat. And it was pretty damn fancy. It had glass flooring and staircases that turned opaque if you stood on them so people couldn't look up your skirt. All the usual fancy boat shit like a spa and gym and movies that hadn't even been released at the cinema yet. The set designs for fashion shows. When I was working as a scenic carpenter, I was always amazed at the amount of money spent on scenery that will go right into the trash for events that last 30 minutes to a couple of hours. We covered an empty warehouse floor in Manhattan with something like 50,000 square feet of beveled oak boards in one instance. Material costs aside, we had a crew of around 20 guys making at minimum $25 per hour working for days around the clock to make it happen. I went to a party at a pool house when I was a teenager. Just the pool house was 4,000 square ft. The kid's grandfather invented sheetrock. Outside of the crown jewels and art museums, I went to Harrods and saw a chandelier worth 50,000. Edit. Some people are taking this quite literally. To be clear, yes. Of course I've seen more expensive items, hence the crown jewels. This wasn't a grand hall chandelier. This was something you could hang over a standard dining room table. A $2.5 million mansion in Missouri. My roommate and I played dress up and went to the showing for the free food. When we asked about the entire first story being stone, including the furniture, we were told it was because the river overflowed and flooded the mansion every year. Everything was made of stone so it could be cleaned easily. Why the fuck would anyone spend money on that? A freshly drafted NFL rookie stayed at a hotel I worked at and partied a little too hard. When checking out, he left over $100K in jewelry in the room. I was tasked with going and getting it and securing it till someone from his posse could come get it. I wore it for a few hours for fun. Heavy AF and so fucking shiny. A bracelet that was wider than the biggest watch covered in diamonds. And a chain that went past my sternum and probably half an inch in thickness, also completely encrusted in diamonds. I guess it's not entirely outrageous, but I went to a family-owned aquarium store a couple months ago to get some medicine for my guppies, and they were selling 1-year-old arowana fish for $6,000 each. I'm probably just ignorant when it comes to prices of exotic fish, but I was quite surprised considering they were surrounded by guppies and goldfish whose lives are worth approximately $2.50 each. In Aspen, CO, a few years back in a small antique store. We walk in and the guy working there never even acknowledges us while he's casually chatting on his phone. I see a carved wood eagle sculpture about 2 feet tall and 1 foot wide. I flip over the price tag, $125. I laughed out loud, looked at my friend and said, "This isn't our kind of store," and promptly left. Aspen is the weirdest place I've ever visited. A comic book shop called Silver Snail used to have Amazing Spider-Man #1 on display and for sale. This was back in the mid-90s. Edit. The one on Queen Street. A 12-year-old Russian kid who came to stay at a summer camp I worked at, that has a 64,000 Rolex. We later found out that his 14-year-old cousin was actually his 28-year-old bodyguard. And he was the son of a Russian diplomat. All around nice kid, though. I worked security at an art museum and we exhibited this little Chinese teacup with a rooster on it. Little ass thing was worth over $36 million. Apparently there were only 4 in the whole world. I felt unsafe around it, like I'm not risking my life for this stupid cup. $10,000 20K bicycles. I must have looked poor, because the guy running the place pretty much kicked me out as soon as I walked in. A bottle of whiskey that was $50,000. If you purchased it, it had to be delivered via armored vehicle for insurance purposes. Seems a bit over the top. But I'm more of a $20 bottle of whiskey kind of guy. My budget and wife have made this very clear. I used to work for a billionaire. They loved to purchase very old wines. Think 90+ years old. Random jewelry for their spouse. A solid gold sturgeon caviar holder. $1 million plus cars. Etc. Generally all through auction at Sotheby's. It was my job to organize their purchases. It was interesting to see what crazy things rich people spent their money on. I may or may not have tried on the jewelry. A wealthy couple had a pair of Steinway Concert Grand Model D pianos at opposite ends of their spacious living room. Neither the husband nor his wife played. The pianos, valued at about $175,000 each, were just there for show. And when they hired someone like me to play piano for an occasional cocktail dinner party. Note: I once posted this comment some time ago to a similar question in AskReddit. Catered a high school graduation party. We did fried chicken and mashed potatoes, so had no idea how we ended up serving food in a mansion. Turns out the daughter was going to Auburn, so they wanted something Southern. Out of 200 people there, they ate maybe 4 full plates of food. They had another catering bring the real party food. TLDR. People dropped $3K on food just for the novelty of it. I live in NYC and like to be a tourist sometimes. So my husband and I went to the 5th Avenue Tiffany's. I don't even wear jewelry. But I like shiny things, and a very nice, clearly bored sales associate let me try on a yellow diamond 2.5 carat engagement ring. For fun. I asked the price and it was $65. I can't even imagine how rich you would have to be to have that as your engagement ring and that be a normal thing. I shook Bill Gates' hand in 8th grade. He visited our school to make a donation to our district. Haven't came across anything more expensive since then. I play Magic the Gathering. My decks aren't expensive, but they're not cheap either. Normally around $400 to $700. Then I played against a guy who had a deck worth around $29. Crazy thing is that this was his first deck, and he bought all of the cards recently. He didn't even play that often either. So imagine dropping almost 30 grand on something that you'll use maybe once or twice a month. F-35 and F-22. Both at airshows. F-35s were parked and didn't fly, but I got to see the F-22 showing off at a different airshow. The way I describe it is it's an IRL cheat code plane. It doesn't even look real. Went to Disney World a few years back and got a glass slipper from Arribas Brothers. One of the items they had was a jewel replica of the castle. It costs more than $30. And don't get me wrong. The thing looked wicked. But I'm not spending more on a decorative piece that will live behind glass, for my own sanity, than I spent on my car.